I'm Ken Green. I'm the provost here at the College of Florham, and welcome to this UN Pathways event. This is one of the pathway events for the season, and on October 20th, the ambassador from Turkey will be here for the presentation. But this evening, it's our pleasure to have Ambassador Toure here from Sierra Leone. But what I'd like to do right now is to introduce Ambassador Kamal from Pakistan, and he is the person who's primarily responsible for this UN Pathways series. It's through his relationships with the United Nations ambassadors in New York that we're able to get the speakers to come here. So we really appreciate and thank Ambassador Kamal for that. And now, Ambassador Kamal, I'll let you introduce our guest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Toure doesn't need much of an introduction at the United Nations. And the reason for that is that he started work at the United Nations in the 1960s, before I was born. And so I consider him my mentor and senior, which is saying a great deal because this year is my 35th General Assembly at the United Nations, but I happily doff my hat to Ambassador Toure. Diplomat, lawyer, eminent personality, and diplomat again. And so, Ambassador Toure, it's a pleasure for us to welcome you here at Fairleigh Dickinson. But it's a difficult task for most of us because most of us do not even know where is Sierra Leone. Enlighten us a bit about Sierra Leone. Where is it located? How big is it? Is it a small country? Is it like Singapore? Is it a big country? What is its population? What makes it tick? And what makes you tick? And I'm very interested in the fact that you share a common name, Sékou Touré, with the former president of Guinea. How is it that two people from two different countries have the same name? Is it that the same family is running two countries? Are you like the Bushes or the Kennedys in West Africa? So tell us a bit about yourself also. You have the floor.
Well, good evening. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm delighted to be here. In the first place, let me apologize for absenting myself last session. It was due to some countervailing circumstances which prevented me coming here. But I've tried to make it this year. And may I also say that my mission has forged a link with this institution. Two of my staff had the benefit of following a mass course here in the spring of 2006. And they've been valuable assets in my team, and they exemplify the quality of intellectual attainment of this your great institution. So I'm very much delighted being here, really. As far as my name is concerned, which I will start with, because perhaps you might be interested in knowing why I'm Toure, Sékou Touré. It happens to be the same name as the former president of Guinea, the late one. The name Toure is very common in West Africa, from both the Malinke tribe and the Susu tribe. You will note that even in Mali, there is a Toure president, ATT Toure, and we all hail from one stock, Almami Samaru Toure, who is the greatest warrior in the Shonga Empire of those days. So from there, people migrated from that part of Africa to other parts of Africa, especially West Africa. So if I'm called Sheku Toure, don't be surprised, that is the connection. Now, Sierra Leone is a very small country. It is slightly smaller than Scotland and a little bigger than Sri Lanka, and is almost the same size as South Carolina. Now it lies between latitudes 7 degrees and 10 degrees north of the equator, and between longitude 10 degrees and 14 degrees west of Greenwich. It has an area of about 73,000 square miles, which is about 29,000 square miles, and about 73,000 square kilometers, for those of you who think metric. The population is now estimated at about 6 million.
It was only 5 million yesterday. You produce a lot of children,
Yes,
obviously.
well, that is it, because we had a war, but I mean, we are very prolific, as you know, in that country, and some of the polygamy is at least part of the life of the rural community, so children are very much cherished.
It must also be because there's not enough electricity, so the nights are long.
That used to be during the Civil War, but nowadays we have electricity almost 24 hours in the capital and in the main headquarter towns. So we've passed that stage now. So at least it's no longer the city of darkness. There's light throughout 24 hours in the city. So briefly, that is Sierra Leone, and it's a very small country. And from north to south, it's about 335 kilometers. From east to west, it's about 325 kilometers. And then from either side to the coast, it's about 300 kilometers. So it's very much circular in shape. Then on the northeast, you have the Republic of Guinea as our neighbor. On the south and southeast, you have the Republic of Liberia. And then on the south and the southwest, you have the Atlantic seaboard, which runs for about 400 kilometers. So you know that we have at least a very wide offshore area. That is Sierra Leone so far.
But other than producing children, which you do obviously very well, what makes you tick? Are you a nation of farmers? Are you a nation of educated people? Are you a nation of poets? What is the soul of Sierra Leone?
Well, Sierra Leone used to be the nerve center of education in West Africa. It used to be the center of the British administration in West Africa. So it was even called or dubbed the Athens of West Africa.
The Athens.
The Athens of West Africa. The very first university in West Africa, which is the Furobe College, founded in the early 19th centuries, was founded in Freetown, Sierra Leone. As you know, it was a settlement founded for free slaves from America, England, and some from the West Indies. They went there and settled there during the abolition of the slave trade. And so, with the background of the slaves that went, and then the pioneering initiatives of the British, education flourished in that small colony, which was a very small colony in those days in 1787 when it was founded. And then it became a British colony in 1808. That is within the coastal area. And then there's a hinterland after the coastal area, which was a British protectorate in 1897. So later on, both the colony area and the protected area merged to become Sierra Leone as you know today. So if you ask us what makes us tick, I think our culture makes us tick because of our past relationship and interaction with the British and the British culture that we imbibed through having participated in their own cultural aspects and traditional aspects during those days in the Atlantic slave trade. And for now, a blend of that with the traditional African culture, which makes Sierra Leone very unique in stature and culture.
Yeah, but you've been trying to imbibe British culture. Remember that we are in the United States, where we've been trying to shed British culture for 230 years now, and to do things differently. But you seem to have a love of Britain, which is not shared in the United States.
That might be so, but I see a resurgence of British interest through the, what do you call it, the Tea Party. I mean, you all will remember the Boston Tea Party those days, some students of history. No taxation without representation. And so I think there's a resurgence of British interest here.
Tell me a bit about, more about culture, because is religion important in Sierra Leone, and what is the religion?
Religion is very important, but we really don't have religious conflicts. There's cohesion between the two religions. The greater percent is Muslim, about 60%, and about 30% Christians, and then 10% animists. So, but we have very, very good rapport and cordial religious tolerance in that country. We don't have conflicts like in other areas.
What about the women in Sierra Leone, the Muslim women? Do they wear the veil? Do they wear mini skirts or not?
Well, that is very interesting. That makes it very unique because we don't have religious fanaticism there. I mean, we are more modern with our facets of religion, and some perhaps will wear the veil, but it's not compulsory.
What about mini skirts?
Mini skirts, well, like every society, some seem to frown on depending on the length, but we can go with what is a fair length and reasonable. You cover all the interesting parts, that's okay.
Okay, tell me a bit about the politics of, because you have been a colony of Britain. What is the hangover from colonialism in Sierra Leone? What are your memories of colonialism? After all, you are a decolonized country. What do you remember of colonialism, and how important was colonialism in your current history?
Well, I grew up at a phase when I witnessed it for the last 10 years before it folded up in Sierra Leone. Because we had our independence in 1961. And colonialism went on for over a century. I only saw about 10 or 15 years of that, really, before we had independence. My experience and memories are ambivalent. I remember I grew up in an island where the school I attended was a British school called the Church of England, former Church Missionary Society school. And the form of education that was instilled was based on the British system. And in that small country, small island, there were other schools, colonial schools. You had the St. Patrick's, you had the convent, St. Joseph's Convent, and then you had the EUB, Evangelical United Brethren, and they had their female counterparts, the minimal, and you had the Wesleyan Methodists, in a very small island like that with a population then of only about 1,000 people. Then you had farms, colonial farms, they were all there. The UAC, United African Company. You had the CFAO. I'm sorry.
Is that your girlfriend calling?
Not my girlfriend, is... Can you take this and put it? And you had the French company, you had the SCA, Society Commerciale l'Ouest Afrique, you had PZ, Patterson Zoconis. These were all colonial farms in that small island. What was their presence there? It was mainly because of the cassava produce and the oil palm produce. These farms had agents who were the Lebanese and some few Asians. They buy from the local people and then they sell to the European farms and then the European farms export. No indigenous people were involved in this trade. So that goes to justify the fact that the coming of colonialism was mainly to promote trade and get the raw materials from the colonies back to the motherland. And then these farms were there also selling manufactured goods. These manufactured goods came from England and abroad. And they even retailed those goods. So there were no middlemen, no local people were involved in anything. So it shows also that colonialism was mainly interested in sending manufactured goods, finding expanding markets for manufactured goods. But the educational impact was so good that even when I left that small island and went to high school, almost all the teachers at the senior level, from 3 upwards, were all whites. The very principal was Scottish. The physics master was British. The biology master was a New Zealander. The geography master was Scottish. The chemistry master was an Indian. The Latin and French was a Canadian. And so on, the list goes on. So why was all this? At the moment when you were at a point of imbibing a lot of culture, you are confronted with this set. At the lower cadre, from 3 downwards, they were all black teachers. So why that difference? It occurred to me later that it was, in fact, to make sure that by the time you leave the school, you would have imbibed a lot of British culture within your system. So these were some of the interesting aspects of my memories of colonialism, both from the point of view of finding expanding markets for manufactured goods coming from abroad, and then exporting raw materials from the colonies back to Britain, and also with the legacy of education they left with us.
Let's ask you a bit about the women in Sierra Leone. Because whenever I have visited West Africa, I have found that the work and the commerce is really being done by the women. The men are just sitting outside drinking beer. The economic life is being governed by women. Is this true of Sierra Leone also? And if so, why are the women not working? Why are they only drinking beer?
Well, I think perhaps you must have visited a different Sierra Leone. The Sierra Leone I come from is a bit different. Within the rural setting and within the former colonial era, that is the former colony area, there are differences. Within the rural setting, there is male chauvinism. The husband is the man. In farm work, of course, women play an important role, but a lot of the hard work is done by the male, and some of the weeding is done by the female, and some of the household chores and care are done by the female. Laundry, outdoor cooking, fetching water by the female and the children. That is within the pure rural setting. Now, if you go to the colony area, you have career women. And even before that, even during the colonial days, the women were there, they were good traders. Some traded as far back as even in the Gambia or even in Ghana and Nigeria. But then still, there was male dominance, both in terms of being the breadwinner and both in terms of taking most of the material decisions relating to the family. So perhaps you must have gone to a different Sierra Leone, but we in Sierra Leone believe in sharing and in making sure that our female folks also take part, but not leaving everything to them.
Well, I'm delighted to hear that because I'm married to a woman who's made of stainless steel, and she dominates me totally in my life. I've been married for 47 years, and my life has been a total tragedy for 47 years. So I'm delighted that you have some balance between men and women in Sierra Leone. Give me a bit of an idea about the economic imports and exports of what is it that you produce? Where do you make your money?
Well, predominantly, there is a mining sector. Diamonds are produced.
Diamonds, that's interesting.
And gold. And then there is bauxite. There is iron ore. And we have some platinum, some chrome. And recent surveys show that we have some deposits of oil offshore, and we don't know in what quantities that is being explored. We also have produced some cash crops like coffee, cacao, ginger, cassava, and cacao, and some citrus fruits, pineapple as well. And then we also have some very rich marine resources, fish, and then we have a lot of timber resources as well. So it's very rich in natural resources, really.
Yeah, but if you've got gold and diamonds and food and coffee and Starbucks and oil, then you have no problem. Then you must be one of the richest countries in the world, particularly if you've got diamonds. But I want to go a bit deeper into the diamonds, because in the UN, we have something called blood diamonds. What is this blood diamonds business? And is this a problem in Sierra Leone? And do you think the United Nations is justified in talking of diamonds as being good diamonds and bad diamonds? What are your views about diamonds and blood diamonds?
Well, to be frank, before the civil war in Sierra Leone, which started in 1992, we never heard about blood diamonds. It's a terminology that came out of the 1992 civil war. And there's a school of thought that holds the view that our diamonds were exploited by people and used to fuel the civil war. In other words, there was a big conspiracy against the country where the rebels and the warring factions and combatants were incited or more or less encouraged to exploit these diamonds, sell to others outside in exchange for arms, which they will come with these arms back to the country to pursue the war. And some of these diamonds didn't go through the normal legal export basis. They were smuggled out of the country and they were illicitly mined. So there you got the name blood diamonds from. In other words, the exploitation of such a very rich natural resource, instead of for the benefit of the country, it became a curse.
But we thought diamonds were a girl's best friend. But a great movie has been made about these blood diamonds. It's a very popular movie in the United States. But talk about coffee. I'm interested in coffee also. Because one of the problems of coffee is that if you go into Starbucks and you buy a cup of coffee, it costs $3. But the producer of the coffee, Sierra Leone or Colombia, is getting only 7 cents out of those $3. How much money are you earning from the coffee being sold by Starbucks? Are you satisfied with the percentage that you are getting?
We all know, as economists will say, that the terms of trade are always against us because we don't dictate the state of commodity prices when you export them. They are being dictated by the buyers themselves abroad. So we all produce almost similar goods. Coffee is not only produced in Sierra Leone, it's also produced in the Ivory Coast and some other areas. And we all compete to sell. And when you compete to sell, of course, prices will go down. And those who buy dictate the price. So the terms of trade are against us. So we are not getting much out of our coffee as we would have loved to. But this is also because of the impact of colonialism, because these raw materials, instead of being processed within the country, they were exported raw and processed outside. So there was no chance for even giving employment, nor any chance for them for more income to be derived or more benefit to be derived from these resources. So it's a disadvantage, as a matter of fact. We don't get much out of our coffee because of that. It's not our fault. It's been something that has been deeply ingrained and which, as developing country, we are now trying to change.
These days, everybody is talking about China because of something called rare earths. Because of the fight between China and Japan, we have suddenly discovered that China controls 97% of the rare earths in the world. One of these rare materials is something called coltan. I had not heard this word a few years ago, but apparently it is a word which everybody should know, because you cannot have a cell phone, this cell phone, without coltan. So coltan is essential for all cell phones. And it looks as if you almost have a monopoly on coltan. So you must be a very powerful and a very rich man if you are controlling the cell phones of everybody around the world. Tell us more about coltan.
As far as we are concerned, this is a very new discovery in the country. And we don't know so much about it as yet, but we know that there is an exploration company that has been given a franchise to explore for the possibility of discovering this particular mineral called coltan. It is something that is used in electronics, it's used in the cell phones, it's used in laptops, as they say. And then it's found in one of the rivers downstream in the south of Sierra Leone. And I think there are also some deposits are said to exist in some part of the north. But really, we don't know whether they are in exploitable quantities or commercially exploitable quantities. We don't know. It's very new, and we are looking at it ourselves, but we'll be delighted, of course, if we are fortunate to have them in good quantities so that the country can use it for its development strides. But then we are delighted to know that we have it.
So if I want to become a millionaire, all that I need is to get a license to mine coltan in Sierra Leone. And then I'm made for the rest of my life.
Well, I will say Sierra Leone is part of the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, is subscribed to that, and being an extractive industry, we will comply with international standards, and you will go there. As long as you are within international standards, then you are welcome. But then we make sure that at least the management of that particular resource will now be for the benefit of the country. So you don't just take what, although we guarantee repatriation of capital and repatriation of your dividend and interest, but we make sure at least that the mining communities around the area also benefit from that, from the resource.
I'm very glad to be your friend.
Thank you.
Because I think there's a future for me in Sierra Leone.
Thank you. And we welcome investors.
Talk to me a bit about your relationship with neighbors. How do you get along with your neighbors? Do you have any border problems with neighbors?
Well, let me say Sierra Leone is a very hospitable country, and it's been ranked as the 11th in the global, I think, an index which just came out, charities index which came out. I think we are ranked as 11th for hospitality.
11th for hospitality?
Hospitality, yes. It's a very friendly country. Our neighbors, Guinea, of course, we have very good relations with them, including Liberia. Also, Ivory Coast, which is a bit further, we all belong to the Customs Union, which is a regional economic community called the Mano River Union. And that was founded in the early 70s, and it's been going on. But because we have problems in each of those countries, a civil war in Ivory Coast, Guinea is a little bit not too steady. Liberia had its own civil war, Sierra Leone had its own, so we are finding it difficult to resuscitate the Mano River Union. But then we have very good friendly relationship with our neighbors.
But you have no border problems with anybody?
We do not have any border problems. There is a small minor one which we don't think need to bother us too much, which is called the Yenga. But then that is being resolved between us and Guinea, and I don't think there's any source of worry. It's not a border problem, it's just a question of having squatters there, so we don't consider it as a border problem.
Do you have an army? Do you have a troublesome army as we have in Pakistan? We have a terrible army. We want to export it to Sierra Leone or any other country that wants to import an army from Pakistan, including a president in Sierra Leone.
We have an army which is about 10,000 strong, and we are also contributing towards peacekeeping in Darfur, where we have a company.
A company?
Yes.
That's 100 people only.
Well, for now.
I see. Okay. You're at the United Nations. What are your problems at the UN? What preoccupies you and Sierra Leone at the United Nations?
Well, Sierra Leone is very much interested in multilateralism. And in these days of globalization, we want to contribute our own share towards the maintenance of peace and security in the world. And we see the United Nations as the only representative global organization that can take decisions which will go down globally. And but being a small mission, we cannot get ourselves involved in everything, so we try to prioritize. And in some of these areas, we are interested mainly in peace building. We're interested in the Security Council reform because our head of state is chair of the Committee of 10, founded by the OAU. And also, we are interested in the UNDP projects. We're also interested in decolonization, which is because we are vice chair of the Committee on Decolonization. We are interested in areas of peacekeeping also, since we are now a troop contributing country on a small scale. And we are also interested in developmental issues through ECOSOC. And these are the areas I think we are interested in, and with our small resources we have in the mission. But then generally we try to get ourselves involved in almost everything really that goes on in the UN.
I have two more questions that I'm going to ask you, and then we will open it to the floor. So the floor should begin preparing your questions from the floor. But your colleague, the ambassador of Rwanda, will also be coming here in the near future. And the question, a general question that I want to ask about Africa is that there is something confusing about Africa. On the one side, you have a number of conflicts, internal conflicts. Countries have problems, and you yourself said that Liberia has problems, Guinea has problems, Guinea-Bissau has problems, etc. And this is the West Coast. On the East, we know that we have serious problems in Somalia, in the Congo, etc., etc. So there are lots of problems in Africa. That is the negative. But then there is this extraordinary positive of an Africa that is coming together closer and closer in the African Union. We have never seen countries come so close together as in the African Union. In the United Nations, we know that you cannot succeed unless you are friendly with the 53 countries of Africa, because they are sticking close to each other and voting together. So how is it that on the one side you are fighting, and on the other side you manage to come together in such an important African Union? How do you explain this schizophrenia that you have?
Well, that is it, but I think you've answered the question yourself, because most of the conflicts are internal conflicts. And most of these internal conflicts within the states themselves may have some root causes, not within the country, but might be caused by some interplay of some external forces. So that explains conflicts within the states themselves. Sometimes it's because of mismanagement of natural resources, and sometimes it's because others want to come in and exploit the natural resources, and the only way they can get that is by creating conflict. That comes in. Sometimes the root cause of the conflict is based on ethnicity, and when you talk about ethnicity, perhaps the partition of Africa perhaps also has to be blamed because of that, because these boundaries were very artificial, and they were not constructive. And, but because we realize in Africa that these problems exist, therefore, the regional organization, which is made up of member states, so to speak, come together to find solutions to these conflict-ridden areas. That's why you find that the African Union plays a very positive role in most of these areas of conflict in Africa. And there's very good regional cooperation between the African Union and even the United Nations. Some cooperation. In some cases, in fact, the regional organization comes in as a first step, even before the UN Security Council acts. In the case of Sierra Leone, ECOMOG was there, which was the West African force, was in Sierra Leone even before the UN intervened. And also in Chad and these other areas, you find something similar. These are African forces. They are there before even the UN intervention. So that is the attractive part of it. Some of these conflicts are not homegrown. They are caused by external sources. And then we have, as member states, have to contain them. And this is why we come together as a region to play that role.
Yeah, but you have now referred to one of the legacies of colonialism, which is the problem that many of the borders in Africa are very artificial borders. And we know that because these borders were drawn up by drunken Europeans who used to get drunk on whiskey, and then at 11 o'clock at night, when they were totally sozzled, they would take out a map and draw lines on that and say, okay, this is yours, this is mine. That's how the borders of Africa were drawn. Now, you in the African Union, you took a decision that even if the borders are bad, we will keep them intact. Fine. But now you have the situation in the Sudan. Sudan is going through a referendum. And that referendum can result in a breakup of that country. And once Sudan breaks up, what is to prevent other countries in Africa also breaking up? After all, Congo has a border with 9 countries. Why should Congo not break up? If Sudan can break up, why not the Congo? Why not Rwanda? Why not other countries? Why not Sierra Leone?
Well, I would ask you to give me any country in Africa which is similar to the situation in Sudan, where you have Arabs in the north and Africans down the south, where you have a blend of that, culturally different in any respect.
I thought all of us were Africans in this room because all of us started from East Africa. And the only difference between the one and the other is that some had stronger legs, so they walked all the way to America, and people like me had weak legs. So by the time we got to Pakistan, we were tired. But we are all Africans in origin.
That is true. But then because of the cultural differences which have come to play a lot of impact in the relationship between the two sides, the north and the south. And in the south feeling that they don't have a share of the cake, that almost everything is being more or less monopolized by the north. And these are some of the differences there. But then, as I say, these are issues which are based on cultural differences and ethnicity. And they are not strange in Africa. Some of these might find time when perhaps a solution will be found eventually. But then we've not given hope on Sudan. We still hope we will have a unified Sudan within the AU. And that is our goal.
But it's quite clear that Sierra Leone is a happy country, close to paradise, and that's where the 72 virgins are to be found. And so I look forward to my next trip to Sierra Leone. We'll open this to questions from the floor.
You'll be welcome.
Would you like to come in, Mr. Provost?
Earlier, Ambassador Kamal was inquiring about how to get a license to mine coltrane. You referred him to the process for application. In this handout, a glimpse into Sierra Leone, it says over here that the new government's priorities include further development, creating jobs, and stamping out endemic corruption. So my questions are, who do I need to see to arrange for a license for coltrane, and how quickly do I need to see them? In other words, more seriously, what kind of progress are you making in changing such a deep-rooted thing as corruption in your country?
Thank you. Well, let me say, you might find comforts in the assessment, the ranking of Sierra Leone, according to the World Bank doing business. It ranks as one of the, I think one of the, it's moved up over 20 places or 12 places in doing business in Africa, West Africa, such.
20 best or 20 worst?
20 places
20
above
best. Oh.
in doing business. So doing business is very easy. There's a one-stop shop where you go and get, within a day you get your license to float your company and start your business. And also there is a lot of investor protection because we contribute towards the World Bank Convention. And so you find it very easy to start your business now. And there is no difficulty. Formerly, it used to take over a month for you to float a company. But now you can go there within a day, one-stop shop. At the same place, you get your M&A, and then you float your business. And you don't even have to pay an advance tax. So that is the ranking we now have. So we rank as one of the fifth, in fact, I think, in sub-Saharan Africa for doing business quickly and then starting your business. And then as far as corruption is concerned, we are also rated very high within the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, where we are ranked very high because we're fighting corruption, combating corruption very, very seriously. And then there's an anti-corruption commission, and which has a lot of teeth to bite. And we are quite aware of the menace, and there's a political will to make sure that this menace is stamped out or minimized in every respect. So you're welcome to go there. There's no problem starting your business. You go there today, by tomorrow you can have a license to start your business there. We want to encourage a lot of investors, and especially now that the economy seems to be moving or poised towards economic growth rather than just political stabilization.
You know that there is a Swedish company called Transparency International, which draws an index of the most corrupt countries in the world. And according to that index, the most corrupt was Nigeria, and the second most corrupt was Pakistan. And the Nigerian foreign minister came to me and said, in truth, you Pakistanis are the most corrupt because you bribed Transparency to put us below you. Questions so that the provost can...
So you're welcome, please.
In the handout, I was somewhat surprised to read that the literacy rate was in my view, shocking to be only 35%. With an illiteracy rate of 65%, it would seem to me that that represents a major obstacle to any attempts to grow and progress in your country. What is your government doing and planning to deal with what seems to me an insurmountable problem to growth and progress?
I think the statistics really from this record are a little bit obsolete and stale, and I think the illiteracy rate now is about 30%. So, not the literacy rate. The illiteracy rate is 30%, not the literacy rate. But then, apart from that, there is much done now within the government to encourage human development in terms of health and education. And recently we discovered that there were the rate of failure was very high, and there was a commission that was put in place to change the educational structure, and that is being done. And there's also the poise to bring in a lot of vocational and training technical institutes, and also there's a strive to increase the number of universities within the country. There's the plan to have almost in every province, we have 3 provinces, for any province to have a university. And there's one in the south, there's one in the capital, but then there are plans to have one in the north. So there's a lot done to bring in, to improve education. We had a flight of a brain drain, more or less, as one would call it, because of the effect of the war. So a lot of our experts, teachers and everything left, and some never returned because of greener pastures. But then that is being corrected as of now. And so we hope that Millennium Development Goal 2, which is universal primary education, would perhaps help us in trying to correct the drive towards the pursuit of education at that lower stage. And then we encourage more skills training and capacity building as such. And with our assistance from some of our international partners, we may have scholarships from some other countries to train our capable people in some of these skills and everything. So
the question of the link between education and development is part of the axiom. Most of us believe that that is an essential link. But then you have a country like Sri Lanka, which is described as the country with the highest literacy in the world, much higher than the United States. Sri Lanka is 98% literate, and yet it is as underdeveloped and as unfortunate as other countries. So I think we have to take your question with a slight pinch of salt.
Sure. What do you think the public perception is of Western culture right now in your nation and in Africa in general?
What do you think of Western culture?
I think, first of all, you have to have what actually is Western culture.
Western culture is wearing a tie, which is the most foolish thing. Imagine going around like a dog with a thing around your neck, which serves no purpose. Why do you wear a tie?
Then if that is the case, then Western culture is dwindling, because there are a lot of people who go out without ties nowadays. So we don't know. So Western culture, as we used to know it, is perhaps dwindling now, because a lot of people, in fact, prefer to wear their jeans and go casual. Even when you ask for conventional attire, they go in that form. But in any case, I think culture is not just attire. Culture is a way of life, a way of thinking. And for us, I think there is much to gain from both sides. Both sides have their advantages and disadvantages. In some cases, it's negative because too much of freedom, too much of laxity breeds a lot of ill will and breeds a lot of negativism. And whereas within the primitive setting as it is, there are also advantages and disadvantages. So I think there has to be some cross-fertilization between the two. And then you have the ideal.
Yes, but you had a very strong movement in Africa, which started with Senegal, of negritude, of pride in Africanism. And I think that is the question. How much pride do you have in Africanism as opposed to pride in European culture?
Well, this is what I'm trying to say because those were days when countries were just more or less fighting to be independent. And some of these concepts and ideas grew up negritude, and then here perhaps in America, black is beautiful and this sort of thing. But then these are days when those ideas are more or less being toned down for economic growth. The emphasis everywhere now is bread and butter. That's my own short answer to you. Bread and butter is the answer everywhere. And then those days of concepts, negritude, the African personality, and this and that have gone. Every country now wants to progress. And this is the age of globalization. So it's cross-fertilization of ideas. And that is what we're interested in, even in terms of culture.
Hi. As a member of the African Union, how would you judge the international response to the current conflict in Sudan?
The international response in the conflict in Sierra Leone?
In Sudan.
In Sudan.
I think the reference is to Darfur more than to southern Sudan.
Darfur.
Yeah, Darfur.
Well, in Darfur, you know, you have UNAMID, which is more or less a concerted effort by the UN and the African Union in order to bring stability there. There's always one thing I believe, is that whatever the level of international intervention in any conflict, the success of it lies with the people themselves. They must be ready to make peace. They must be ready to reconcile their differences. And it's only within that setting that any international effort could be meaningful and be progressive. Once you have that, then I'm sure you have nothing to blame the international effort there.
Okay. Hello. I had a question. How open are you guys to, your country is open to human rights, human differences? I know in one of my classes we're talking about gay rights, hermaphrodite, like their rights and stuff like that, like their differences. How, like your country, how are they open to those differences, to those human rights and stuff? Am I cleared on?
Yeah, I think you're clear, but are you talking about gender or you want to talk about gay rights?
Both. Both. Like
Both.
genders and human rights in general.
Okay. Well, let me tell you that just a few months ago, the Sierra Leone launched the National Action Plan on Gender Empowerment and Women's Rights and Security. And in our country as such, women are playing a very effective role in decision making. And you find them occupying very high public office also. Now, the Chief Justice, as a woman, out of 21 judges of the High Court, 9 of them are women. And out of that 9, 4 are Supreme Court judges as well. The head of the National Electoral Commission is a woman. We have in West Africa the first female brigadier. And you have women in very important roles and high positions in the police as well as in the prison service. You have about 14% of parliamentarians are women. And for local government, you have about 20% are women. So we are encouraging women to play a role in the development process of the country. And we give them priority in every case. They are not being marginalized or discriminated against in as far as decision-making process is concerned or holding high public office is concerned. So there's a move towards gender equality and gender empowerment, as well as the girl-child education in the country.
Soon you'll have to set up an association for the empowerment of men.
If they need it, perhaps. We'll do that. Now, as far as the other aspect of your question is concerned, we don't have that experience in Sierra Leone, so I cannot really say much about it. Yeah.
There was another hand here. Oh, there are two.
My name is Jessica Wheaton, and I'm a sophomore here at Fairleigh Dickinson. And I'm aware that one of the major problems facing Africa right now is the prevalence of HIV/AIDS. And my question to you is, what is the prevalence of AIDS in Sierra Leone? And if it's a major problem, have there been steps taken in regards to treatment or prevention of AIDS?
Well, luckily for us, the percentage is about 1.7% now. And just 2 weeks ago, we received an award from the United Nations based on our successful implementation of Millennium Development Goal 6, which is reduction in HIV and AIDS, malaria, and other diseases. So we don't have problems with AIDS as far as the prevalence is concerned. We've tried very hard to contain it. And the president, who is the head of state of Sierra Leone, is head of the National AIDS Commission in the country. So that shows that the political will is there to combat this disease, and we have succeeded in reducing it drastically. So we don't have a prevalent rate which is high. And several steps are taken even to reduce mother and child infection and that sort of thing in every respect. And a lot of sensitization is being done to contain the disease. So that's why we succeeded in bringing it down to at least 1.7. And it's very low. So we got an award from the UN on that.
I'm Alex Alvarez. Now my question is to you. My family also comes from a war-torn country, and I know very well that it's very hard sometimes to get people to want to invest in your country and visit your country when you have a bad reputation for violence. So what steps have you taken to improve your reputation to get people to want to visit Sierra Leone and invest in the country?
Which country do you come from?
My family's from Colombia.
Colombia.
Well, one of the steps we've taken is trying to rebrand the country. In other words, to enhance the image of the country and to make sure at least it gets good publicity, the right publicity. Just 2 days ago or 3 days, the Security Council lifted the sanctions on Sierra Leone. And to me, that is a certification that there is stability in the country, and also that there is no more warring factions, and that the government of the country has full control of its territory. And as far as peace is concerned, as I say, we are ranked very high in the rankings for the degree of peace and stability we have in the country. So what I would say is this, that we've done our best to make sure that you can now go to the country, there are no warring factions. You can now go to the country, you can sleep peacefully. You can go there, start your business without any problem. So it's there. So I think the issue there is rebranding and getting the right publicity from the media. That is what we want, the media to help us do the publicity and to rebrand Sierra Leone, that it is safe and there is peace consolidation going on, there is national reconciliation, and there is no more war. The war is over.
Hello, Ambassador. My name is Jennifer Filliger, and I'm also a student here at Fairleigh Dickinson. I want to thank you for coming. And also, I wanted to ask if you could hint further on the poverty level of your country, and what health policies you have in that country of yours.
Did you say the poverty level?
Yeah.
Yeah, poverty.
And the health policies that you have in your country.
Well, on poverty, we have the Poverty Reduction Strategy Program or Growth Facility, which was launched by the government. It's called the Agenda for Change, which sort of prioritizes areas of interest the government could be involved in, and to ensure that poverty is reduced or alleviated. So the policies involve improving, enhancing the energy sector, enhancing agriculture and food productivity to ensure food security. It also involves improving the infrastructure, that is transport and the roads, and it also involves improving the Human Development Index, which is health and education. Those are the areas, the concentration of my government, and those are the priorities we think that will help in reducing poverty in the country.
Sure. Hi, Ambassador. My name is Matt Sisko, and my question is, in the developmental strategies of Sierra Leone, some of which we've been discussing over the past few minutes, how much of a priority is sustainability?
Sustainability is the watchword for everything we do, because unless there is a move towards trying to sustain what you are doing, sustainable growth, then you are wasting your time. So all efforts are being made in every facet and factor to ensure that any attempts made or any strides taken are sustainable within the economy. And there are steps that will ensure sustainable growth and development.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Turing and Professor Kamal, for a really interesting and enlightening evening. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming in.